Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3, and it is a big day in the world of On 3. This is always a big day when the number one recruit in the class announces his decision. And in this case, the class of 2026, Jackson Cantwell, the offensive lineman who looks like he was made in a lab to play offensive tackle. He's from Nixa, Missouri. Parents, world weight throwers on the track. He moves well. He's huge, and he's got it down. There's actually 6 finalists: Georgia, Miami, Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Missouri. But Ari, it feels like it's down to Georgia and Miami. And our guy Steve Wiltfong got on the Wiltfong whip around on the On3 Recruits channel last night and had a very interesting update. So let's watch that.
And we are starting the show with some major news. Actually, a major shift in Jackson Cantwell's recruitment. Steve, what is the latest that you're hearing?
Yeah, for the last couple of weeks, I've been feeling Georgia for the number one recruit out of Nixa, Missouri, who will announce his college decision on Tuesday during a ceremony at his school. But talking to numerous sources on Monday, I feel like Miami is very much right there. They were the leader at the end of April, and I could see him throwing up the U tomorrow and picking Miami over Georgia and over Oregon and the others with some of these late conversations that they are having with the Miami camp.
Well, that would be an incredible move for Miami, who is always hunting some of these 5 stars, but this one is special. Number one recruit in the country.
So that is a very interesting update because Jackson Cantwell has been trending toward Georgia. Georgia just got the number one QB recruit in the On3 industry rankings, Jared Curtis. This is the number one player in the On3 industry rankings, Jackson Cantwell.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, right? But we can both probably go out and tell you, as reporters and people who talk to coaches and stuff, like we get a sense of, how bad sometimes coaches want a certain player. Let me tell you, Miami wants him really, really, really bad. And it looks like they have made a lot of headway in the last few days and maybe making that a reality. And I think that this is a prediction show or a theory show. It's just a show. And I think there's a lot to talk about if Miami gets him, because when it comes to theory of how to build a roster, Andy, when it comes to theory on how much an offensive lineman is worth, there's a lot here to talk about.
Well, David asked this question, and again, we don't know where he's going. He's announcing at 3:45 p.m. at his school today. We don't know where he's going yet. We don't know what he's going to say, and these things can take some weird turns at the end. But David asked this question: why are these kids going to Miami when they have a very small fan base? It must be purely money driven. Well, can I ask answer with a question? What is it? What if it is? What does it matter if it is? Like, that's how a lot of people make employment decisions.
Can I just ask you, something? If you were really, really rich and you could pick where you wanted to live, wouldn't Miami be like
Coral Gables would be high on the list?
To not just live, but live rich. Like Miami would be like in the top 3, right? Like LA, Miami.
It'd be very high on the list. Now, Athens, Georgia is one of my favorite towns in America, so this is a tough one for me. This is a very tough one for me, but of course, that is definitely one of those where
that's always the knock on big cities too, right? Like, oh, it's amazing to live in, but it's very expensive. Like my wife and I want to live in Orange County. We haven't done that. Hopefully one day in the future when the show goes big, we're going to move there. But we haven't done that because of how expensive it is. But it's like, if you're rich, then of course we'd already be there. You know what I mean? Like that.
Right.
I don't know. Also, I think I've seen a lot of talk about, well, it better be Georgia for the development aspect of it. Like Miami's done a really good job too with offensive linemen. Like Mario Cristobal, even going back to Oregon, has built his teams in the trenches. It's not like they're just paying a bunch of money for an offensive lineman.
Penei Sewell, I think, turned out to be a pretty good player. That's a guy that Mario Cristobal recruited and developed at Oregon. Alex Mirabal is his offensive line coach, by the way, deserves some of the credit for that too. He's a very good offensive line coach. So the development piece of this, if you're an offensive lineman, I think Georgia and Miami are pretty close. Now, Georgia can say we tend to win more championships. They absolutely can say that.
Yeah. I don't think that if you're a 5-star player and the number 1 player in the country, that you're like pissing out your development by going to a place that isn't Georgia. That's all. And I think that
in this case, it at his position, they're a proven developer. So I think that particular argument's a
and the
wash.
head coach of the program has already proven over his entire tenure at multiple stops that recruiting offensive linemen is a priority for him. Like, that's his position. So, like, this isn't just like, oh, I'm going to end up at Toledo or something. Like, this is a big deal for Miami. Yeah. And I think the reason why Miami is obsessed with having him is because they understand how important it is to have offensive linemen like this on there, especially in the ACC too. Like, I don't know if this is like controversial and going to make people mad, but I think that it's probably fair assumption or of fact that you have a higher level of defensive linemen just in general across the board in the SEC, right? So this
Correct.
makes it a need for people in the SEC, but I think it's more regular in the SEC to have great offensive linemen. But if you have like an elite first-round draft pick tackle in the ACC, I think that takes you a pretty long way. Like, Miami is a fascinating program because, as you know, I'm not overly high on them this year. I think I put them number 20 in the top 25 that I released on Monday, which, by the way, Andy, a lot of people were mad about. I know you're shocked to hear it.
Oh, actually, can I give you one person who's happy?
Who's that?
Rhett Lashley. Thrilled you left SMU out.
I mean, you know what? If I can be the reason why a team makes the playoff, then that'd be the most important accomplishment of my life.
Happy with you. He told me to tell you
that. Yeah, I mean, like, every time we do lists like this, one coach is happy with me and unhappy with you, and vice versa. Who was the last one that was? Oh, Jed Fish was mad at you, or was he mad at both of us? I can't remember.
He was mad at both of us.
And I didn't leave SMU off. They're 21.
Mario Cristobal is not mad at us right now. I talked to him for a while yesterday. Now, obviously, he can't talk about Jackson Cantwell, so we didn't get to talk about that. But I did talk to him about roster construction because we had this conversation about Miami the other day, and I find this interesting, especially if they wind up getting Jackson Cantwell, because I have a question for you about this, Ari, because we talked about how much they've used the portal and how many guys they're getting out of the portal this year, how many guys from the portal they expect to start. And one thing we talked about when we talked about it last week is, for the most part, they are homegrown in the trenches. Most of their starting offensive and defensive linemen are guys they recruited out of high school. Akeem Mesidor is a transfer from West Virginia on the D-line, but he's been there. I think this is his 4th year there now at this point. So, like, it's almost entirely homegrown. I believe their center is a transfer this year. So, like, you and I have been very clear. We think the best way to compete for national championships, build a national championship type roster, is through high school recruiting. Is it possible that it's required to do that in the trenches, but you can do more in the portal with the skill positions? I feel like Miami's the test case for that.
Yeah, I think that it's certainly. How many times has like a first-round offensive lineman transferred? Like, we talked about the scarcity of receiver.
Josh Simmons last year.
That's right, but when he transferred, he wasn't.
Right.
When he was a liability 2 years ago.
Well, and Ohio State is a really good example of this. Ohio State this past year, Michigan the year before, both of them had taken some transfers and started transfers along their offensive line. A couple of them that were 1-year rentals, but the bulk of the guys in the trenches were homegrown guys.
I was just going down the list because, like, it's an interesting thought exercise, because we both have come to agree, and you found through data that ready-made receivers aren't in the portal very often. And I'm wondering if you actually did the math for every position. I feel like offensive tackle would probably be similar to that.
Anecdotally, offensive linemen move less, especially once they're already in a power conference. Now, Isaiah World, for example, the guy going from Nevada to Oregon this year, the offensive tackle, that is strictly a play to try to become a first rounder. Like that, he wanted to move to a power conference school to try to become a first rounder because he has the measurables for it. But for the most part, like, because Josh Simmons was San Diego State to Ohio State. Like, he wasn't coming from another, like an SEC school or an ACC school.
And also, if you remember, Josh Simmons 2 years ago, people thought he should be benched. It's not. I mean, like ready-made, no doubt about it, offensive linemen, not good ones that are going from, the kid from Rice that went to Ohio State too might end up being a first-round draft pick one day as well. But and he probably was more ready-made than a lot of players in that position. People were excited about that pickup, but there's no. I just don't think you can build your offensive line through the portal, 1 through 5. So I think that the thing that's the interesting part is if you had to focus on one position in high school and then worry about the portal, I think the offensive line would be certainly a position I'd want to focus out of high school. I think receiver would be too. Maybe not so much quarterback because there's a lot of those, but still maybe quarterback. Here's the thing that I think is interesting, Andy. In the world of I'm going to rely heavily on the portal, but I'm going to do high school recruiting to a certain extent that's good enough where I'm not transient. Because I think Miami is semi-transient, but Florida State is very much transient. Miami still recruits a top 15, top 10 class every year. They're not recruiting high schoolers. I think that Florida State, if you go back and look at their Mike Norvell high school results, it doesn't look like Florida State classes. They're not necessarily in the 100% transient camp, but do you do it by position or you do it by X number of top 100 players or top 300 players a year that you have to bring in to all across the board in order to get to that point?
Well, and that's my question. Is it more position specific? I think it's more necessary for the big guys than it is for the skill guys, but that's just a theory. I don't know if that's true or not. I think Miami is going to help us test that theory.
Yeah, I think that you have to have a certain baseline of incoming talent in numbers, if I had to guess, more so than specific positions. But what we do know about the offensive line is if you have a really good one in college, you're going to score.
Notre Dame is a great example of this. Notre Dame's offensive line is fantastic.
And I know that Jaden Greathouse had a really good postseason, but Notre Dame made it to the national championship game without any legitimate first round viewed skill position players on the outside. Now, Jeremiah Love obviously is a skill position player that helped a lot. But their offensive line was the driver of that. I'm with you. I view Florida State, and I keep bringing them up because they are the most extreme example of the highs and lows.
Well, also when we're talking about Miami, Florida State is a team that recruits against them. They play every year. It makes sense. Yeah.
But I think that Miami is building their roster or has in the last 4 years in a more healthy, sustainable way than Florida State has. I think that there are people who just aren't paying attention who think that Miami and Florida State are similar in how they're building their rosters. And if you actually pull back the curtain or, pop the hood on that, that's not the case. So Miami is dangerous in the portal and in high school because of NIL, right? But also, too, they've got a coach that has had a pretty good track record of winning. They had a really good season last year. I think they were a game away from the playoff. There's a lot to like about the build there. I don't think that I would view this move, if Cantwell were to go there, as him selling his soul to go to a second-rate program. I think that he's going to a program that should be viewed as an up-and-coming contender. And they're dangerous. So, yeah, I think that this would be a huge move, and I think that you're right, Andy, that I think we could both be right. I think there's multiple ways to create a national championship caliber roster, but I think having where did you have Notre Dame in your top 25? Are they top 3 because of their offensive line?
I think number 2.
Care about that. Number 2.
Yeah.
So that is a big deal. It's a huge deal if you can run the football and protect your quarterback. There's no question. And it just kind of goes back to the number one philosophical thing. And I did this 3 years ago at the Athletic, or 4 years ago now, but asking player personnel people, if they had X, $5 million budget, it didn't really matter what the number was. How would you allocate percentage wise the money to what positions and how many? And I got a large variety of different answers from people who work in the business of it. Some people are I'm getting my quarterback and then worrying about everything else first. Some people are I'm getting a defensive tackle who can disrupt every play on defense and then worrying about everything else. Left tackle was one that also came up. So you have, what are the 4 premium positions? Quarterback and tackle, defensive tackle,
corner.
And corner. Yeah. There's 5.
Yeah, I'd say it's quarterback, offensive tackle, edge rusher, defensive tackle, corner. Those are
Would you
those
rather
are your.
have? Would you rather have a bully defensive end or a bully nose guard?
I would rather have Ndamukong Suh in college, like because you can blow up plays from the inside out. Now I don't necessarily think it's not as valuable in the NFL because I don't think there's that person who can just. I guess Aaron Donald did,
Yeah, Aaron
but
Donald did it pretty good.
it's very hard to do. But in college, if you have that really transcendent defensive tackle like Nick Fairley at Auburn, who really couldn't translate that into the pros, like you can blow up every play, and I think that's a very valuable thing. Ari, I have a question for you that you actually asked me a version of this before we got on the air, and I'm fascinated to hear what you have to say about it because it's really interesting to me. But if you're watching on Twitter right now, go to the link below the link you're watching and click it. It'll take you to the YouTube page. You can hit subscribe, you can hit like, and you can join the chat. The chat is amazing. It's the best college football community going. So come on and join us on the YouTube page because that's where you get the best experience of the show. So the chat is very lively today, very lively. So we'll see you on YouTube, and I'm going to ask Ari a question about the money aspect of this because I think that's interesting too. Okay, Ari, now that we're all among friends on YouTube, you asked me this question before we got on the air, and I thought it was a really interesting way that you asked it. You said, pre-NIL, would Miami ever have a chance against Georgia for a guy like Jackson Cantwell?
Yeah, so the way I asked it to you was, if he picks Miami, is this the personification? I like that word. I don't think I always use it correctly, but I like it. Of NIL flattening the curve. Like, I think we probably have enough proof that there's going to be more parity in the sport as a result of this. And, there are more teams. When I was doing my top 25, and I'm assuming that you jumped into this problem too when you were doing yours, picking a top 10 was difficult. And trying to envision which teams you actually think are good enough to win a national title. I mean, I'm looking at the list here. Like, if Alabama won the national title, would that be weird? Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess
no, it wouldn't be weird at all. Yeah. You have Oregon. You have Oregon at number 9. And we're going to talk about Ari's top 25 all day tomorrow. So save your takes on that because I want to hear them all. But you have Oregon at number 9. Like, it would not shock me in the least if Oregon won the national title this year.
Yeah, I think too that there's some overvaluing of players and talents. But we'll talk about it. I think that my cutoff for the national championship is just a lot different than it would have been 4 years ago. He said this over and over again. And it's also too, if somebody in the teens gets hot, it's not out of the question to think that somebody 16 through 20 could do it. What if Austin Simmons is the best quarterback in America this year?
After we had him on the show, I was like, I got to move Ole Miss up 10 spots.
I'm just saying, the notion that a team 11 through 20 could do it is not insane. I doubt that it'll happen, but it's not as insane as it would have been to think that 4 years ago. But if you assume that Cantwell going to Miami probably would not have occurred in the past life of college football in 2019, then a 5-star player at a premium position going to a program that's trying to build over one of the traditional dominant powerhouses is literal proof that it's just a different game now. That's, I mean,
and where did the number 1 offensive tackle in the country go last recruiting cycle?
Yeah.
He went to Tennessee, which was not one of those schools that was getting those guys.
Yeah, and Tennessee, also a team that I think values the offensive line position, especially considering the fact that they probably backed up the Briggs truck for him. So, yeah, back in 2019, these players just go to Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia. I wonder what his top 3 would look like right now if there was no NIL.
Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia. I can tell you that right now. That's exactly what it would be.
If you want to bring Oregon into this.
Well, without Nick Saban, would Alabama be? That's a legit question. Would there be somebody else that replaced them? I don't know.
I mean, they had, I think, 8 top 100 players in their class last year with DeBoer. So, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't rule it out, but it's obviously a much different ball game. I think that even if you go look and do a list of most teams that benefited from, or teams most benefiting from the NIL era. Like Miami and Oregon will probably be in the top 3, right? And now look at them. They're in the top 3
Miami, Oregon, Texas, Tennessee. Which Tennessee, I mean, double-edged sword for Tennessee based on this offseason. But
I think that that's going to help Tennessee in the long run. I really do. I think that they're going to learn from that. They're going to refine their deployment of their money.
Well, and I think with Georgia, they have to, and this is all part of the equation here. Like Georgia has to walk a fairly fine line that Miami doesn't have to walk, because Georgia's already a national title contender. They're coming off an SEC championship. They have really good players who are already going to be are already high round NFL prospects. They will put like a bunch of the players from this year's Georgia team will get drafted and will get drafted high. So you have to be really careful how much you pay a freshman at Georgia, because you can't pay a freshman more than somebody who starts for you who's going to be a first rounder next year.
I mean, that's also going to be a problem at Miami soon too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then somebody else is going to get that guy once it becomes a problem in Miami.
Yeah, or the players in the future that are older and more experienced are going to get paid more than the market is set for the freshmen, and then it'll all flatten out that way. But like, yes, you're right. But like, if you add Cantwell to this mix, then Miami is in top 10s, or more likely to be in top 10s in the preseason for the next 4 years. Like, I don't know what your process was. I don't think that we actually even talked about it when we talked about your top 25 last week. So I want to talk about it when we do mine tomorrow. But like, what was your process for ranking them? Like, I see how people get angry. There's a lot of like, oh, my team beat that team last year, but that team's ranked ahead. Like, I don't even.
We're trying to. I mean, I'll tell you, part of it is I'm trying to judge what this year's roster is going to do, and that's why we do them again after the portals change.
I don't think about anything else that happened last year. I look, you know what my process is? Let's look at their 2 deep. How many good players do they have?
It's a pretty solid way to do it.
I don't think about narrative. I don't think about what they've done in the past. I don't think about how many games their coaches won in 2017. I think about who's on their team. And that's maybe why I overranked LSU a little bit. They've got a lot of really good players, you know?
But here, the problem with that, what we run into is where you miss the surprises is some freshman who winds up being amazing that you didn't expect to be amazing, or some guy who's just been kind of behind the scenes developing who blows up. Like remember Quinnen? Now, obviously, everybody ranked Alabama number 1 the year Quinnen Williams blew up anyway, because it was Alabama and Nick Saban. But like nobody knew it was going to be Quinnen Williams that year, who'd be the most dominant defensive player in the country.
Well, here's the thing about that, though. It's like, we try so much in this to project the future, Andy. We're not supposed to know what the surprises are. That's what makes them surprises. Like, I don't know.
That's the fun part. Yeah.
Like if Oklahoma starts off 8-0 this year, then that's going to happen. One of these teams at the bottom half of the list is going to be much better. And if it's Rhett Lashley's SMU, who I have 21. Oh, the horror of ranking somebody 21, by the way. Rhett, come on. You can't be upset about that. That's a really good
I think he thought you left him off.
He missed it then.
He might have mixed yours up with somebody else's.
Yeah, I'm going to text him after this and be like, hey, buddy, I got you. 21's a good – if you told Rhett Lashley when he took the job that they'd be preseason ranked 21 coming off of a playoff appearance, I think he would have cashed in on that pretty quickly, don't you? Like, I'm not – I don't know that I'm insulting them. But, like, yeah, that's the thing. So, like, but Miami has if they get him, again, all in theory here, they would have a player that's a bookend on their offensive line for 3 years that would go into the calculus of how good the team is. And that doesn't go into the math of who else they're going to add, who their quarterback's going to be in a few years, what receivers are going to get. Like, they're going to get dogs from Miami because that's what they've been doing. The recruiting class has been good. They're going to win the ACC eventually.
Yes, if they keep doing this, they will. Like, they have to avoid the letdowns like they had against Georgia Tech and Syracuse last year. But
two things happen in this type of transaction. One, Georgia, although still very good, is not as dominant. And then they become more viable in their conference. And what you do potentially with moves like this is you make the Goliath weaker and you make the middle tier team stronger. And that can change the paradigm of how 2 separate conferences finish in 2 years. Like, that's, I mean, like, I don't think that people who don't like recruiting understand, like, these are I mean, how many elite level players do you think you need to have on your team right now to win a national title? And I know that we're coming off of a year where 14 players got drafted.
That's a column. Like, I don't know the answer to that, because I think it's changed. I think the answer was different in 2020.
In 2020,
than it is now.
12, right?
Probably, yeah. And I don't think you can have that many now.
Because that's the thing. That's the craziest thing. And I don't want to undercut our show tomorrow, but it's such an important piece to this discussion of like, why is Penn State number one? Because they have 8 legitimately elite players on their team. Right? Could you come?
Right.
Could you get? They got the 2 best running backs: Drew Aller, Trevor Pena, Dennis Sutton. Like, I mean, like you can get to that 8 pretty quickly if you go down their roster. So, like, I don't know if they're going to be better than Texas, but I thought their roster was I don't know. I mean, like, it's all theory, but like I think that you need 7 to 8, maybe even 6. But 6 wouldn't have been enough last year. But I mean, moving forward.
Yeah, Ohio State last year was the last of that particular brand of dinosaur. Like I think that species is extinct now.
Yeah.
So
and it's extinct because of days like Tuesday, May 13th, if Cantwell picks Miami.
Right.
He also picked him over Ohio State, too, who's in the mix.
Correct. And Oregon. I saw in the chat, I guess Oregon didn't want him because they never get outbid. No, Oregon wanted him badly.
Yeah.
Oregon doesn't always bid the most money. Like, it's not an unlimited fund pool at Oregon. It's really not.
I know. I think that people.
Well, we are going to talk about the pool at Oregon shortly.
Yeah. That was a hell of a video.
But yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see how this shakes out. It by no means, like, Georgia's still probably going to have the number 1 class in the country, by the way, even if they don't get Jackson Cantwell. So let's not, if he doesn't pick Georgia, don't cry for Kirby Smart. They're still going to be really, really good. Yeah. They still got the number 1 quarterback in the class. Like, they're doing fine.
But that's the thing, too, of like this. It's like nobody is even asserting that Georgia is not going to be one of the 5 best teams in college football anymore. We're asserting that Georgia's team isn't going to be so good that they can't be beaten by anybody. Like, in the national championship years, they were so dominant that, like, the only other team that could beat them was another dominant team. Like, that was recruiting. Like, they just had the misfortune of playing in the same conference of Alabama. But, like, if Georgia was any other conference in America, even the Big Ten to a certain extent, when Georgia was at its peak, because Ohio State wasn't measuring up to that during that time, like, there was the only team in the country that could end up beating them was the team that they lost to in the regular season by happenstance because they happened to be in the same conference. Like, but like now Georgia, although a top 5 team, can get picked off by 6 teams on a bad Saturday in their conference when that was legitimately impossible in 2018.
Yeah. Yeah. The result we saw in Oxford last year was impossible from 2018.
It could not happen. They could have maybe lost. Teams lose sometimes. But what we saw there was they were not the better team on the field that day.
They were not getting blown out by a team that wasn't going to be the national champion. It's not even
the blowout. They were not the better team that day.
Yeah.
They had a worse team than the other team on the other sideline.
Right. So it is all of this is changing. What Jackson Cantwell decides today, we'll see. Because he may go, you know what? No, I want to go to Athens. Like, I want some Weaver D's fried chicken. I want to hang at Cali and Tito's, little BYOB action. He might say that. But he might say, I want to go to the U. And that would be a very interesting outcome. A very, very interesting outcome. All right. While we're on the subject of recruiting, we did mention Oregon. We mentioned Dan Lanning. We do need to watch this video. Richard Wesley announcing his commitment to Oregon. So he's from LA, Sierra Canyon High School. He's a 5-star edge rusher. This is there's a lot to unpack here. So let's just watch the video.
There is.
Oh, didn't see you there. Well, all the schools, they all show me, types of love, but there's one school, show me the most love, and, I guess that's where I'm going. You ready, Coach?
Let's get it.
Whoa! It's time, baby. Let's go.
The figurative jumping into the pool as he jumps into Oregon's pool. A lot going on here. You got the ladies sunbathing nearby. I think that's not an accident. I didn't see you there. Premium start to any video. Oh, I didn't see you there.
Okay, I don't know. There are 4 things that I've noticed in this video. One is what is that swimsuit? That's not a swimsuit. That's just boxer shorts, right? Like those are.
That's not even boxer shorts. That's like the spandex, like what you wear under when you're working out.
And is that like the Scream mask? Is that what that is?
I think it is, and
trying to figure out what that was, but that was
the level of confidence in your body required to wear this. You better be a 5-star edge rusher.
I guess in my household, I should get those underwears because underneath will probably make anyone scream. But the other thing that I noticed is that Dan Lanning doesn't know how to do a cannonball. I don't know if you want to run that back, but he put his hands behind his head where you're supposed to put your hands underneath your. What was that cannonball form?
Was it supposed to be a cannonball? Yeah. Hold on, let's look. Okay, yeah. Wesley definitely does a cannonball. Yeah.
If it's not a cannonball, then what is it? I've never seen.
I don't know. It's not a can opener is where you hold one knee up and turn around.
Yeah,
but
that is like, I don't know. Maybe it's, oh my God, we got a 5-star. Like maybe that's what.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Yeah. But also too, anybody making fun of Dan Lanning, I would definitely jump in the pool if I was a coach getting a 5-star.
Absolutely.
I would do anything.
How many college coaches are confident enough to rip their shirt off for one of these things? Now, obviously, Coach O back in the day would do it anytime.
Did Coach O ever wear a shirt? I don't think I've ever seen him with a shirt on, let alone.
He wore a shirt and it made a big show of ripping it off at various team meetings.
No. Never a sissy blue shirt.
No. At UCLA game will forever live in infamy. But what's the percentage of college coaches who are ripping the shirt off? Like Mike Norvell's in great shape. He'd do it. Manny Diaz, I think, would do it. Jake Dickert, saw him yesterday, the new Wake Forest coach.
Freeman would do it.
Marcus Freeman.
Marcus
Freeman would embarrass the 5-star. The 5-star would be like, no, I quit.
Hey, Jack Terry, if you're watching this, can you make a graphic of most attractive male bodies in coach form for us? We're gonna rank them top 10 right now.
The word and the words you just have under it because you like your one word, hot.
Yeah, and then you can also bring back the Deion Wood graphic, and we can have a day of it. You know, you know who would probably do it? That's kind of an under the radar. If Bill Belichick. Is going to take pictures like the Gordon's fisherman pulling out his young girlfriend with the fishing rod who's dressed up like a mermaid. He can jump into a pool for a 5-star.
I would love to see that. I would love to see that. And actually, Ari, you've brought us to our next topic. That was an amazing segue.
Graphic, by the way, he just sent me. He's not going to do that. So, all right, I'll get.
I'll
get somebody else to do it. I mean, I do think
Hayden, our new Hayden, the new graphics guy.
Yeah, we'll circumvent the system, I think. But like,
yeah, we don't need you, Jack.
Who's the last ugly coach to win a national title?
Well, this is very subjective.
Think about it. They're all handsome. Okay, moving on. Are you looking up coaches' names?
I'm not going to. So quit asking.
Not talking about this. Not talking.
I'm not going to. So quit asking.
Not talking about this.
Yeah. I think that there is a correlation between physical fitness, handsomeness, and recruiting. Maybe not. I mean, you go back in time 20 years, you might be able to find somebody who's not aesthetically pleasing, but you know, he was just old.
Larry Coker in the chat from Ozzy catching a stray. So.
I mean, if we're going back to 2001 or we're going back to the 90s, then you get my point here.
Oh yeah. I want to tell the viewers and the listeners here, by the way, this is a conversation that Ari has roped me into more times than I care to recall.
We've had 6 podcasts.
handsome coach conversation.
Male coaches, yeah.
And Ari's just right into the camera, like, look at this. Look at this.
I'm trying to center myself up here, but like, yeah. I mean, I think that like it's an unfortunate reality in life, Andy. And that's somebody who has
look
been
how handsome you are when you get up to the camera like that. It's beautiful.
But like I actually
it's like angel singing.
I know we were just kind of playing around, but like to be serious, you know, as somebody who has been very, very big, still a big guy, but was massive, you know, a year ago. The way you are treated in public, the way people view you, I think you are treated differently when you aren't. So like, I do think that there is a certain level of, you know, bias towards, you know, people who aren't in great shape in terms of, are you as good at your job?
Well, like if Mark Mangino looked like Marcus Freeman, because this is the guy who won the Orange Bowl at Kansas. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think that there are certain coaches out there, and we're not going to actually play the game, but that I wonder if their physical appearance does hurt them at times. And like, that's because that's just human nature, that any way that it would hurt me. Like I was terrified, like to go through job interviews, even when I was really, really big. It's like, who wants a podcast host who has 9 chins? You know, like I get it. And I don't know why we're talking about this, but it is, people have
I think it's something that a lot of our audience deals with. And you and I have obviously dealt with it. I mean, both of us were a lot bigger not long ago.
Yeah. And even to this, I still have like 50 pounds that I want to lose, but like, it's just people perceive you, your opinion, your qualifications, your ability to do whatever you're applying to do differently if you're not overweight.
Yeah.
Although nothing about me has changed. Yeah.
I think you're right about that. It's people look at you differently. The first impression is completely different. You can see it on somebody's face. Like,
and also it's harder to dress nice when you are big because it's harder to find clothes that fit you properly. Like it's like, and then the way you present yourself is you're viewed as sloppy, even though it's kind of out of your control because there's not a lot of clothes that fit you the way that it would. And like that's the funniest thing about a lot of clothes. It's just like if you put like a $20 or $100 suit on Ryan Gosling or a $5,000 suit on somebody who's overweight, Ryan Gosling's going to look better. Like the clothes can only that's so far, you know, like
that's the one thing about when losing the weight that I realized, like, because I used to be I got to get this brand of shirt and this brand of pants. Like, it doesn't matter if you're in shape.
Yeah.
You wear a paper sack.
Nobody cares on t-shirts that were thicker fabric to like hide or to try to hide. And like now I just wear t-shirts from Gap because it's just like they're $8 and people don't know the difference. But like, yeah, that's the thing. So, I mean, I've noticed it on my wife too. Like, I feel like she looks just as good to me when she's wearing her, you know, Amazon stuff as she does with the nice stuff. So, and, you know, I don't know. Anyway, so if you are interested in ranking, send me your rankings of top 10 hottest.
Send your hottest coaches. We'll get the graphic going.
I mean, do we not think that there's a correlation between Marcus Freeman's attractiveness and the turnaround of Notre Dame football? Like, is there not even a 1% impact of that?
I guess we have to see what happens at LSU. Is that the only way to really judge that?
I don't think that Brian Kelly's ugly. I just think that like the influx of
But who's Marcus? I mean, who competes with Marcus Freeman?
Marcus Freeman just hot. There's no other way to put it, you know, in the most, you know, factual. I'm just trying to be.
We've made people so uncomfortable with this show. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we are. Who we are. Like we should. You know what? When you click play on the show, you know what you're getting. So
we're all friends here. We can have this honest conversation. We absolutely can have this honest conversation.
And by the way, on May 13th, if the podcast goes sideways, it's your fault for being here. Like it's, you know, like this, it's just the way it goes. It's May 13th.
But we love you.
Yeah.
Actually, we need to turn it back a little toward football, but not really. Because the person I'm about to talk about was at a beauty pageant all weekend. So.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, yeah.
Bill Belichick.
We're on to Miss Maine. I saw Bill Belichick yesterday at the ACC Spring Meetings. I did not see Jordon Hudson. Did not see her.
There. Were you trying to find her?
I walked around the hotel a couple times. I took a couple laps around the old Ritz-Carlton, but did not see her. Was told not to expect to see her. And like when Bill got there, he went straight into the meetings because he was the only coach still carrying his suitcase. There's something cool coming though.
How far away is Amelia Island from where you live?
About 2.5 hours.
So you didn't stay in the Ritz last night?
No, I drove home last night.
I would have stayed.
I know you would have, but it's like $1,200 a night. You think I'm going to stick on 3 with that?
Yes.
I'm a company man, Ari.
Yeah, we are company men. We do stay in Marriott's a lot when they're not media hotels. We've always been good. Even at the Athletic, we were good about that.
That's right. We bring value to the company. So yeah, Bill gets there. He's got his suitcase. So I'm assuming straight off the plane from Miss Maine, and didn't deign to talk to any of us. You know, Dabo Sweeney with multiple national championships is doing like local radio interviews, but you know, the assembled, and there were a lot of North Carolina like triangle media types who came down to cover this thing. But no, yeah, nothing from Bill. But speaking of Dabo and speaking of Bill, last night the ACC network recorded a segment with Reese Davis hosting. Bill Belichick meets Dabo Sweeney, like a round table with the two of them, which I am fascinated to hear what that means, what that is. Now, I'm told that Dabo doesn't really didn't know Bill Belichick. They had not really talked a whole lot before that. So like, I really can't wait to see where that conversation goes.
I like Dabo as a human. I think that he's entertaining. I loved his spot on our show. Does anybody ever met Dabo Sweeney in person and not liked him?
No.
But there's
Zero
a lot
people
of people who can't stand him. Because
and if they met him, they'd love him.
Yeah.
So here's how, right before I left last night, this was the scene. So the coaches meeting gets out. They all go to the reception except Dabo and Bill, because this is when they had carved out some time to film this thing. So they're in this room, and they put this sign on the door, said filming in progress, do not disturb. But Dabo's wife's looking for him. So it's Dabo's wife and Tony Elliott, the head coach at Virginia, who used to be an assistant on Dabo's staff. And they're standing there and they're just cracking jokes about this whole thing. And meanwhile, Dabo and Bill are in there, hopefully spinning gold. Like, I cannot wait to see this thing.
I mean, it does kind of seem like very different personalities, because like Dabo is like out there, flamboyant, funny, like engaging, long-winded. You know, like he has a saying for everything, right? And then Belichick is the exact opposite in those ways. He's not warm. He's not engaging. He's not long-winded. He doesn't seem happy to be there.
Well, like, and that's my, like, the bigger question, like the conversations I was having with a lot of people yesterday is, it was more on the football side. Like I realize the Jordon Hudson piece of this has taken over the conversation. And every time we try to talk about Bill Belichick and football before the CBS Sunday morning thing, nobody really wanted to talk about it. But the football part of this is what fascinates me, because I'm in there watching, you know, Jake Dickert at Wake Forest, or Dave Doran, NC State's coach, obviously Manny Diaz, the Duke coach. Like, these guys are playing Bill Belichick this year.
Yeah.
I'm sure they want to have a win against Bill Belichick on their resume. Like, is this going to go anywhere near what we think it's going to go?
That's the fun of this, right? I mean, I cannot believe Bill Belichick is a coach in college football still. The man has won, was it 6 Super Bowls or 5? It's 6, right?
6. And then 2 as a defensive coordinator, so really 8.
And his number one goal in life right now is to do the thing that Dabo Sweeney has done 9 times.
Win the ACC. Yep, exactly. And Dabo showed last year, like, how good at that he is, because that was not necessarily his best team. They definitely didn't think the defensive coordinator was up to snuff, because they fired him after the season. And he still won the ACC. So, like, that's what you're up against.
Yeah. And Clemson's going to be awesome this year. I'm excited to watch that interview.
Oh yeah, can't wait. Now, Bill's going to Good Morning America on Friday too. So like,
is this like the rehab tour? Is this like the rehab tour?
Bingo. Clearly somebody got to him and said, listen, you have to do something to turn this around, because all anybody wants to talk about is your girlfriend and the mermaid photo and the we're not talking about this and all of that. So you have to get the conversation back to North Carolina football. But it's funny because Bill has been very anti talking about North Carolina football since he's gotten the job.
Me and Jordon Hudson, I think, have the same qualifications for PR. So let me try to do my best here. Okay. I go on Good Morning America if I want to repair the image. And I don't talk about North Carolina football at all. Nobody cares about North Carolina football. You think the people watching Good Morning America care about North Carolina football?
Definitely not.
You think that they're going to listen to him talk about his two deep and that's going to make them forget what they want? No, you go onto the show and you talk about the things that everybody is talking about and you put your side of that out there. That's what you do. You have a frank conversation, a frank, uncomfortable 30-minute conversation, airing out everything that you need to put out there to put out a secondary view of what has happened here. Because all we have is what we have from reporting from New York Post and Pablo Torre. Like that, that's what we're going off of. And then on top of that, there's a lot of gaps to fill in on your own, which then leads to conjecture, and guesses and rumors. So, I have my thoughts of what this probably is. You have thoughts of what this probably is. People have those thoughts, but why do they have them? Because we're left to fill in the blanks ourselves. I personally would go onto the show and I would bring her with me. I would sit down and have an honest conversation. How'd you meet? What's the nature of your relationship? Why is she involved in business? What happened with all these properties? Where do those come from? Talk about it. Even if you're lying,
it'd be great.
And talk about it. That's how you beat it. You don't go on there and try to redirect the conversation. That looks more suspicious.
Ari, you'd be the best and the worst PR guy ever, because the best PR advice is always just tell the truth.
Yeah.
But
or take the truth.
Few people want to take that.
No, you don't have to just tell the truth. You're not like coming clean. It's not, nobody committed a felony here. They're two consenting
exactly.
adults. They can do whatever they want. I don't want anybody to tell me who to love any more than I'd want to tell them who to love and who to be with. But
we have to address Frappe J Cat's question in the chat. Andy, would you ever recreate the fisherman picture? You, the fisherman, fishing Ari out in the mermaid outfit? Yes. And Ari, I would even be the mermaid in this. You can be the fisherman if you want. Andy,
I think we need to space out the previous topic and this topic until like a different show. We can't go all in on this show now. We just got done talking about the 10 most handsome man in college football. Now you want me to pull you out of the sea with a mermaid?
I'd look good in a mermaid tail. Let's be real about this, Ari.
You know what? I think that like we have never done Halloween together, and I heard like it's really hard for me because like
oh no, oh my god.
But
wait,
here's the thing. I got to tell you, I know what you're going to say. It's the Coastal Carolina.
Carolina unlimited food. October 30th, we come back to my house and do Halloween at my house, and then we go cover Florida Georgia the next day. Let's go.
I am at the very important phase of life where Halloween is very important to my daughter. Like we watch movies during the week. Like right now we're watching Beauty and the Beast. And like my daughter will turn around like while she's laying in bed with my wife and I, and she'll be like, okay, I'm Belle, mommy is the teacup, and daddy's the beast. Because of course I am. I'm always the big ugly thing. But like it is
who becomes handsome at the end.
But she's mapping out for Halloween. Like we watched Moana last week, and I am the demigod, and she is the pig.
You're Maui.
Moana. Yeah. So like she's like this is a thing. So I got to figure out when like our neighborhood's trick or treat is. But like I would love to do that. But
Halloween's on a Friday. Your trick or treat's probably on Halloween this year.
What day of the week is Halloween this year?
Friday.
It's never on the night of Halloween.
That's good. If it's not, let's say the previous Saturday, we could have. It's
usually like 2 days before or after it, and I would assume that Friday would make it less likely.
If that is the case, your ass is on a plane.
A different neighborhood, like it doesn't have to be the same neighborhood. Like we take her to nicer neighborhoods so we can get the king size Snicker bar.
You live in a king-size Snickers neighborhood. Let's be real here.
No, we're a mile and a half away from Highland Park, Andy. It's a whole different ball game over there.
I'm just saying, October 30th in Conway, South Carolina, Marshall takes on Coastal Carolina on the teal. Unlimited food, which we have to test out.
We're not covering the game. We're going to the game.
Correct.
Yeah.
We're going as fans. We're buying tickets. We're downloading the app. We're taking advantage of the unlimited food.
If we go to this, I am not writing or anything. Like, this is like a drunken eat fest where you film it.
Correct.
Like
River has to be professional, but we don't.
Wait a second. If it's on the 30th, I can, at the worst case, we're going no matter what, and I can fly back Friday morning and do Halloween if it's
right.
on Friday.
But the way to really do this is we go from there, drive back to my house.
Yeah.
Where we do Halloween together at my house.
What's the deal with Halloween
in the neighborhood that takes Halloween more seriously than any neighborhood in the country?
Yeah. What happens in your neighborhood on Halloween that makes it so different? You guys all
the
get
cops
hammered?
Block the streets off. You're only allowed to trick or treat for 3 hours. Otherwise, it would turn into a just complete shit show. Everybody throws a party. So you wander from house to house. Like a few Halloweens ago, I wandered into a house and wound up getting a glass of Pappy handed to me. Like, that is how it goes on Halloween in our neighborhood.
Okay. And then your family always is like decked out with Halloween costumes.
We don't mess around. Now, my kids are in various stages of like, my son is getting to where he maybe doesn't, but it will probably depend on what the other guys and what the girls in his grade are doing.
Yeah, isn't
if
it
the girls
like,
want him to dress up, he'll dress up.
You have like this phase of adolescence where dressing up is like you do it unironically and it's like exciting for you. And then you get to adolescent stage where dressing up is for losers. And then you get to young adulthood.
And then the girls start wearing shorter costumes and you're like,
yeah, and then you get to college and then Halloween becomes awesome again because girls just wear bikinis with bunny ears and then that's it. And then you go into adulthood and, you dress up and go to bars and stuff. So like I went back to dressing up. Like last year, Liv was a doctor and I was the patient and Britt was a sexy nurse. And she doesn't
she just calls it a nurse.
She doesn't like when I call her sexy nurse. She's just the nurse, but she goes, we're going to a 2-year-old Halloween party and you keep telling everybody I'm the sexy nurse. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, do you know who you married? And just much like you guys know what show you're listening to. Like, it's not my fault. It's yours.
River, clip that. Ari saying it's not my fault, it's yours is going on the soundboard. But no, so interesting. ACC, back to the ACC Spring Meetings. It is a very different vibe in the ACC now than it was the last couple of years because you don't have schools in the league suing the league anymore. Everybody's getting along. I think in terms of like what happens next, like even with Clemson and Florida State, everybody's just, we don't know. It's kind of out of everybody's control. It almost feels like everybody's just sort of happy again. Like, hey, we don't know what's going to happen. We can't really change it if we wanted to. So let's just roll here.
I blacked out.
Were you just imagining your wife as a sexy nurse? Is that?
Yeah, that's what happened. Honestly. Yeah. I sent River a picture of my wife or our Halloween costume because I wanted you to rate it. But yeah, this is, would you say that the ACC Spring Meetings was productive? What was the most interesting thing that you feel like you found?
I just feel like the vibe's so different. Like they really are. They want to project the image of them singing Kumbaya, but I think they understand. Like everybody's kind of where they're at now, and they understand. Like everybody's tried everything they can try. Florida State and Clemson have sued. The ACC settled, and whatever's going to happen over the next 5 years is going to happen. And I'm not sure how much the people in the room are in control of that. And I feel like there's this sort of acceptance, like just kind of letting go, like, all right, let's just see where this goes.
Yeah. And where it's going doesn't seem exciting.
Well, we can talk about that too. So I have a column out at On3, and it's about the presidential committee, sort of, but one of the things that I think the presidential committee is going to try to do, and it's a very specific thing. So Cody Campbell, the Texas Tech chair of their board of regents, former Texas Tech lineman, he played there in the early 2000s. Has an oil and gas company that actually he and his former high school classmate, who was one of his teammates at Texas Tech, they run it together. They just sold a bunch of assets for $4.1 billion. And so he's one of the people, along with Nick Saban, who's been tapped for this committee. Now, he can't talk about this stuff yet because they haven't really filled out the committee, but he's written some things that kind of tell you where he's headed, what his thinking is. And one of the things I found very interesting that he wrote it's in a publication called The Federalist, and he wrote it in April. And he said one of the things he'd like to do is take the 1961 Sports Broadcasting Act, which is what allows the NFL and the NBA and Major League Baseball, allows their teams to get together and act as a single seller of television rights. So this way, the UFL can't sue the Cowboys and the 49ers and the Packers and say you're acting as a cartel. They want to put college sports into that, essentially as another professional sport, which it is. And the thought is there would be so much more money available from all of the leagues being able to get together and sell their rights as one, which is true. The TV people have been saying this for years, that you might be able to convince the Big Ten and the SEC to not do a super league, to just, say, okay, we're going to make more money, and then we're going to share this TV money, and everybody's going to then, like, the SEC and the Big Ten schools still probably have the most, but the gap would close somewhat. And I found it interesting because I don't want a super league. I don't think a super league would be interesting. I know a TV executive, if you asked him, they want a super league. They want like the top 25 programs and that's it. I don't want that. I like that college football is broad and that you can go to places like Lubbock, Texas, or you can go to places like Boise, Idaho, and see cool college football. So personally, I hope they might be able to pull this off. As asking Congress for stuff goes, I feel like this is something Congress would be more willing to do than just saying you can blatantly violate the Sherman Act and cap players' earnings, because I don't think they're going to get that, no matter how bad they want it.
Right.
But this they might be able to get. Now, here's the problem, Ari. This is what I wrote in the column. Like, it's a double-edged sword, because that also is the thing, if you do it wrong, that allows the Super League to be created. So that's the one I watch the closest, because the thing I want is continuation of broad college football, lots of teams, lots of interest, nationwide. But if they do it wrong, then it's the top 36 or 48 or whatever it is, and I don't want that.
Yeah. Nobody, I don't know. Does anybody want that? I even wonder if, like, the fans of the teams that are
TV executives want that. That's it.
Yeah. But I'm just like, there's such a big divide between what TV executives want and what conference.
I don't think if you ask the average Alabama fan or Ohio State fan, because obviously their teams would be in the Super League safely and would be very competitive in the Super League, but I would bet most of them would be like, no, I think it's cool that we get to watch TCU, BYU, and that's still sort of a big deal. Like, I don't think most people want that to go away.
Right. I don't think anybody wants it to go away. And there's a divide between what people who make money want and what people who consume the product and create the money want. And I don't feel like we've had a pretty good track record the last 3 years of providing the consumer with what they want. And, like, that's the thing that kind of irritates me too. Yesterday I didn't love the way that, like, our debate went. And I don't think I did a very good job of discussing, like, the potential playoff and what the drawbacks of that might be. But the thing that hit me, I was in the shower this morning thinking about it. I was like, what are we going to talk about today?
Always the best time.
I was in the shower. And the thing that I think is weird about the playoff stuff is, and I even conceded this to you during the conversation yesterday, Andy, of like, if you're going to have these big conferences, the play-in at the end of the year to make the playoff between the top 6 teams might make the most sense, because there's no way that you can play all the important games in the regular season because of conference size. But then it like kind of hit me that like we're designing the playoff and we're designing things about college football when the very structure and the basis of what makes things run is in constant flux.
Right.
Which
And,
makes it
and,
really,
and so
really hard.
one of the things that Cody Campbell wrote in this essay was that because TV money is why we have these weirdo Franken conferences anyway, if you balance out the TV money in that way and everybody's making a good amount of TV money, you may be able to reorganize in a more logical way. I don't know that they'll do that, though. I still think the Big Ten and the SEC didn't spend 100
it's like
years
knocking on a castle and asking the king if he
accumulating
wants to live in a 3,500 square foot home instead of his castle.
Right.
You're still going to live well, but nobody wants to give up their castle. Like, it's that simple.
Exactly. So that's my question is, how do you get them to even think about that? And I don't know if I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. So
I just like, are people just tired of the constant flux? Because it's like, even if like this 16 team playoff that we discussed yesterday comes to fruition, it makes sense with the way that the roster or the conference.
Yeah, but if they change, if they completely radically alter it again in 5 years, like
they got to redo it again.
What are we doing?
Like, and maybe that's the answer. We just redo the playoff every year, every 5 years to make it make sense for the current structure. But like, I don't think that anybody is under the illusion that the current way that the conferences are set up is the way it's going to be in 20 years. So what are we doing with the playoff
structure
now?
that makes sense to start from would be the better way to.
In the college football playoff was going to expand to 12 before the conferences exploded, which is what made last year's seeding so stupid. And like, how are we going to avoid being in situations where the playoff that exists coincides properly with the way that the sport is set up? How many more dumb years are we going to have where the playoff doesn't make sense because we put the cart before the horse? We never know.
Yeah, it needs to start with the organization of the sport, and then you build out everything around that.
The opposite all the time. And like, I don't know if there's a way to stop it from being the opposite because the conferences are constantly in flux. And they don't make sense.
And if you're the Big Ten and the SEC, like you said, what's the incentive to do anything different?
It's so stupid that Oregon's in the Big Ten. It is stupid that Texas is in the SEC. It is really, really stupid that Stanford's in the ACC. Andy, there's no other way to put it. It's stupid. And I know that we have to live with this reality, but it's dumb and no one likes it. And I wonder if the teams, I'm sure that Texas loves being in the SEC because of the paychecks that come with it. But like, I wonder if the teams love it. You think Oregon loves being in the Big Ten?
The football players, I don't think they care. I think that the other sports teams probably don't love it when they have to fly cross country on a Wednesday night. Like, that's no fun.
I mean, like, if you asked Oregon, would you, and like, listen, I understand that like making as much money as possible is always what happens, which is funny because we make fun of kids for doing it. But when the actual institutions that are paying them are also doing it. But like, if you could say Oregon, you could make roughly what you're making now, but being in the conference with Washington, USC, UCLA, and all the teams that were, Arizona State, and like
Arizona schools,
Well, like, don't you think they would rather that be the case? Like, the regionality of the sports, what made it so beautiful. The West Coast football was great. West Coast football is what I grew up on. West Coast football still exists to a certain extent, but it's kind of muddied. It doesn't make any sense. No one wants this.
because the Arizona schools are playing the Big 12, which has a little bit different identity than the Big 10, where the California schools and Oregon and Washington are. Yeah, it's very.
What about a 16-team playoff that has 8 conferences of 12 teams with automatic qualifiers and 6 at-large spots? That makes sense.
And I think that's ultimately what a lot of people would want. But again, you have to rip down 100 years of history to get there, and that's going to be hard. Because these people spent this time accumulating this power, and they're not going to just give it up.
I just want to rip down 4 years of history and go back to where we were in 19. We were
That
pretty
would
close
make-
to perfect in 19.
That would, and if you had the conference alignments from 2019 last year,
And this playoff
obviously
that we have
with this
done.
playoff format, the seeding would have made sense.
And we're done.
Yeah,
Right? Like you agree with me on that? I'll concede.
I would have been good with that. Yeah. No, I wouldn't want much more than that. I'd be good with that.
Yeah. It's like you have to expand the playoff to have more spots for teams that are in conferences they shouldn't be in.
Yeah.
Because the SEC has to have 4 spots because there's an extra 4 teams in there that weren't in there before that can actually make it. That wasn't the case 5 years ago.
And Big Ten, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. And I think that's the source of everyone's frustration because there's not an easy solution to any of this.
And the only reason why you like these play-in games is because it's a necessity as a result of dysfunctional.
It's the most interesting way to do it in the current situation.
In the dysfunctional conference situation.
Right. But yes, if you would reorganize the conferences, you really don't need that. If you had a more logical organization, you don't need that.
And I wonder if all the problems that we're facing in college football are just predicated based on dysfunctional conference alignment. I feel like if you
it is a huge driver of it.
We can't even properly crown champions right now. We're flipping coins. Is that what we're doing? We want to flip coins.
If they go to the play-in game situation in the Big Ten and the SEC, winning the championship doesn't even matter.
Finishing third
They're
doesn't
not even play a game for the championship. They're just going to say you're number one, or they'll do co-champs with 1 and 2 if they're tied.
Somebody emailed me yesterday and said that if we do the play-in situation, that it's conceivable that a team that's 7 and 6 makes the playoff.
It is conceivable. If let's say it's a team, probably we'd be talking about a Big 12 team that lost.
We're talking about like Florida State, who lost
conference games.
Florida State, who lost to Florida and Alabama this year, and then I think they would have to. It would be highly unlikely because then they would have to lose the gimme non-conference game too. But if you go 0-3 in non-conference, and then you have 3 losses in conference play, or you go 0-2 against Florida and Alabama, and then you lose 4 conference games,
it'd be really hard in the ACC because you'd have to finish in the top 4 of the ACC.
Yeah, right. I'm just trying to think of like a team that has 2 marquee, like South Carolina, for instance. If they had
if South Carolina lost to Virginia Tech and Clemson,
yeah, and then lost 4 times or 5 times in the SEC and finished 6th in the SEC and still had.
They're not going to finish. They're probably not going to finish 6th at 4-4 though. Yeah, mathematically, that's not going to happen very often. Like you'd have to have a couple teams going.
I think it's
9.
conceivable to be 5-3. Yeah, I mean it happened last year to be 5-3.
You'd have to have some 8-0 teams to make that happen.
Yeah, but even if you make it less drastic and be 7-5, like the 7-5 team making the playoff could happen.
Sure, it happens in the NFL all the time.
Yeah, I guess.
But Clemson was that team last year.
Yeah,
and they lost 3.
Here's the fundamental disagreement that I think you and I have on this is that we both agree, I think, or at least agreed in 2020 that college football had the best regular season, correct? Of all sports?
Yes.
Do you still believe that?
Yes.
Do you believe that because the games are getting better or because the stakes of the games matter more? Like, I think that there's a fundamental shift.
Well, that's the part that the people arguing with me don't get. Unless they're going to make it a 15-game regular season, the scarcity of the games is what makes it the best regular season. It is the most scarce regular season in sports.
Scarcity of
That's
good
why
games,
it's better. There are fewer games.
Yes. But I think that the games that you used to get in college football had inherent stakes in most of them. So when you start putting in a system where a team that's 7-5 could conceivably make the playoff,
I think the last 20 years have watered down non-conference schedules in a terrible way. I think if people are willing to make harder non-conference schedules with auto bids, great.
So I think it comes down to what you prefer then. Do you prefer high quality helmet games with less stakes, or do you work or do you like every game
high quality
being
helmet
hard?
games with less stakes? Because I'm getting the stakes at the end of the season. I'm still getting the games with the stakes.
Okay, but then you are talking about the postseason, which is why I think people like me who care about the regular season are pushed back on it.
Okay, well,
because
what are you going to do on a Saturday in October? Because I'm going to watch college football.
I'm not saying you have to agree with me and like it better or worse. What I'm saying is you have to acknowledge that the regular season is becoming worse.
Fine, still better than the other regular seasons.
Games on the helmets, you are watering down the.
And is it better than every other regular season still? Yes.
I don't know. I mean, the NFL season would be very similar at that point.
Yeah,
Everybody
NFL is the
loves
most popular
watching the
sport
NFL.
in America. Seems to go pretty well for them. Yeah.
But I don't know if the NFL's regular season is the best regular season because it's the best regular season.
It's not. College football's is better. College football's is better.
Yes. So what I'm saying is will college football season still be conceived as better, or will it be more like the NFL where you watch it because it's football, but it's not as inherently interesting as it was before?
Either one is perfectly fine.
Yeah. I'm a regular season defender. So if you don't care about it, that's fine.
It's something you don't actually need to worry about though. Like it's a silly argument. Who cares?
Like, I like getting on an airplane.
You either like football or you don't. So
yeah, I mean, they might as well just do everything as an exhibition and have no champion, and we'll just watch football. Like, I don't know. All I'm saying is that yesterday I thought you had a hard time acknowledging that the regular season was getting worse, and I think we've come around to you acknowledging that.
I acknowledge that the stakes are lower.
That's all I ever wanted.
You
don't have to agree with me because you're like, I'm right, you're wrong. Okay, whatever. I just want you to acknowledge
my argument all along has always been. My argument all along has been, stop telling me about basketball in the regular season and how that ruined the regular season. It's not basketball. It's football, and people like football better. Yeah. And people will keep watching because it's football.
As a co-host of this show, though, like when we argue, I'm not necessarily as interested in changing your mind. What I'm interested in is having a point that the person who's listening to the show can then say, "Hey, I think."
Oh, I know. I got yelled at today because
who did?
You were being intentionally quiet because when we recorded that segment, your daughter was asleep, and so they said you got to fix the audio. You just sound shrill, and Ari sounds quiet. I'm like, yeah, because Ari's trying to be quiet. And then they're like, you got to stop talking over Ari. You have to stop talking over Ari when people yell at me is code for stop disagreeing with Ari and challenging my worldview because it hurts my feelings. Because I've seen people yell at you.
I talk over
or talking over me because they agree with me. Like
I do need to, like, here's the thing. My daughter's room is like through the hallway here. And like, I need it, like, she can't hear me. So I was just being overly cautious because I didn't want to wake her up. But like, now,
I just thought it was funny because he thought like we'd changed the mic levels or something. I was like, no, he's just trying to be quiet.
In this world, I would not put it past somebody to come up with a conspiracy theory that you were choosing my mic level. But I was dissatisfied with the way it went yesterday because I don't think I was able to articulate my point. I don't want you to agree with me. I just want you to acknowledge what I'm saying, and then I'll let the person who's listening.
I 100% acknowledge it.
That's
100%.
So I feel better about it now.
Yeah.
And like, listen, the one thing I want you to take away from that, Andy, is that if there was a play-in tournament at the end of the year, it would be freaking awesome. Like, I'm not trying to discount how cool.
No, but I agree with you. It's an ad hoc solution to a problem that didn't have to be created in the first place.
And also, too, the thing that you also have to acknowledge in college football is that you're putting – so we watered down the regular season, like it or not, from going from 4 to 12. Okay? Yeah. So now if you water it down even more to the next stage, that might actually still work. But the thing that I'm constantly afraid of is that this is a progression. Like, what is the next
there's a point
going to be? There's going to be a point where they overwater it, and we're getting closer and closer to that line. And like, I don't want to cross that line because there is. But
I'll give you the NFL. They added the 2 more playoff teams a few years ago. Like, they don't need to add any more. They should be done at 14. Like 14 of 32 getting in, plenty. Don't add more.
Right. And like, I just
and in this case, like 16. Probably don't need to add more. ever.
Yeah, if we get past 16, then I think you're actually going to flip the script and be like, I think.
Oh no, I will. You and I will be on the same side at that point because 24 is very unwieldy. Like, I know the other divisions in football do it. I know they do. I don't think it would be a good idea. This makes sense.
16, I think, is too much. I still think 16 is too much.
16 is fine.
I think it's necessary because we need to have spots for the what ifs because the conferences fucked it up. I messed it up. Sorry.
Correct. If we're saying the power conferences
is good enough.
Yeah, if we're saying the power conferences, the ones that produce the real contenders, it's 16 out of 65 or 16 out of 65. That's the power conference in Notre Dame.
We have to call it like it is. Texas made the playoff last year, but Texas had the easiest SEC schedule of anybody else in that cluster. And it's like Texas didn't win the conference and they were a pretty high seed. And I don't know if they had a fair and equitable route there than if you compared it to like what Florida or South Carolina had to go through. So in order to make the play-in game, you have to do it so that the teams that got screwed during the regular season with their draw.
But Texas wouldn't have been in the play-in game. Texas would have been just in.
No, but I'm saying like just in general, whenever a team, I was using last year's results, but I'm saying every year, like Indiana's draw was not equitable to what Ohio State had to go through last year.
Right.
You have to have those games at the end of the year to make sure that everybody plays each other because there's no way we can do it in the regular season. And I think that adding a 9th SEC game would help that. But the only way that the 9th SEC game is getting added is if you already mess up the system to do that way. Like they should do the 9th SEC game now and then keep the system so that we have more context at the end of the year when it comes to ranking the team.
But they won't do that.
We had conversations last year about whether or not coaches in the SEC were going to have to meet at a Flying J or a Love's in the middle of nowhere and flip a coin. Like that's not in a sport that is as sophisticated and as money driven as this one is. Like whittling it down to that is insane. Like it's funny and it's fun to think about like Friday Night Lights and like stepping on the quarter and not knowing what it is and like how funny. Like that is like the most Texas football thing in the world, flipping a coin at a gas station. But like that's not where we need to be as a sport. Like
here's my thing, Ari. I'm with you to a point. I want it to be weird and messed up because I think that's part of what makes college football so lovable.
Yeah, I mean it is weird and messed up.
Is this weird and messed up?
Because like it's the thing too. It's like it's almost even contradicting yourself in a sense of like, well, I want to make it more like the NFL, which is the most functional and equitable sport in the world. And then also at the same time wanting to keep it quirky. And it's like, okay, well, which one is it? Because it's like, we don't want it to be anything like
you can't have both. I know it's a problem because you can't have both. And that's what we're dealing with now. Like that is the fundamental argument of, are they going to completely corporatize it? And because like what Cody Campbell wrote about, if that happened, it'd be great in an ideal world that you'd have all of the teams that are in the FBS still in the FBS. The more logical conclusion is that there'd be some sort of compromise and it'd be basically the power conference teams that were part of that and everybody else kind of get punted down toward the FCS. And let's say you reorganize those teams into 16-team leagues or 8-team divisions or whatever that was logically spaced and geographical, which sounds an awful lot like another league I know. Like, yeah, it sounds a little too polished.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the thing that would keep it 60, because I think 65 is better than 32.
Well, I'll see your theory here and I'll raise you one that makes people angry. But as much as I believe that NIL is important and real and fair, I am starting to become nostalgic for the times where like all the back alley negotiation for players behind the scenes in the shadows is romantic. Like
you want duffel bags of cash back?
I don't even know like if it's just like, here's the thing. I caught myself being old yesterday. And I was talking to a friend about the music that I grew up listening to and how it's the oldies now. Because they don't make hip hop music the way that I like it anymore. Really, it's all mumble stuff now.
I don't think they make it the way anybody likes it. I just don't think the kids know any
like
better.
The only person who actually raps anymore, I feel like, is J. Cole, and like Kanye's making a whole new set of music that you might be into. I don't know.
Kendrick is okay. Kendrick's
Yeah,
okay.
like there's a few out there that are still kind of doing it, and like some like Benny the Butcher and guys like that are still like kind of like that. But for the most part, mainstream hip hop music is much different than it used to be.
The only people who can, other than like Kendrick, who can actually rap and have a great flow and are lyrically fun and creative, the ladies. Megan Thee Stallion's a better rapper than 90% of the men out there.
And I do it with movies too, Andy. They don't make good movies anymore. I say things like my dad used to say, like, they don't do this anymore. They don't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I wonder if I am getting to a point where college football was the love of my life growing up. And I viewed college football in a certain way in the system that it was when I was growing up as the peak of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if like I am struggling with my opinions on where the sport should go because I can't let go of how things used to be, or if that's actually used to be better. Like it's the same thing with like NFL uniforms.
Just remember, everybody thinks what was going on when they were 16 to 19 was the perfect way to do it. Everybody.
So I wonder, in the struggle to give real, real, unbiased, informative opinions on the show.
I like the real uninformed, informative. I feel like that describes the show better.
But I want to do my best to like service the audience in a way that's real and informative. But I also struggle to get out of my own way as it pertains to like my romantic view of what college football should be based on when I happen to be born. And like we are getting into the business side of it in a way that we haven't anymore. And I think that the most people who listen to the show kind of share our time periods. So I think that a lot of us who are making these decisions can't speak for the 20-year-old fan, because a 20-year-old fan, even
came up in a different era.
Fans came up a little in a different era. So like I do miss West Coast football. I miss when recruiting stories, and like even though they were bullshit before, still
it was a family atmosphere, Ari.
Yeah.
That's why.
Like recruiting coverage has changed. Like the discussion around Cantwell today was much different than it would have been 5 years ago.
Here, let's help William in the chat. What time does Cantwell select his school? 3:45 p.m. Eastern time. 3:45 p.m. Eastern time is when he will make that announcement.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at. So like I don't know. 2014, 2010, 2005, like those were good years of college football. And I had a really good time with it. Like, I think that the playoff era is the best era because like, I do love the playoff. But I don't know, maybe I don't miss the super team era, but I miss the way recruiting happened during this. I don't know. I'm conflicted on it.
You just want the bagman stories. That's all.
I don't ever want to get to a point. What was the Texas assistant coach's animal who bit somebody? What was that? What animal was it?
Jeff Banks. It was not his monkey. It was his wife's monkey.
Okay.
Her name as a dancer, I believe, was Pole Assassin.
Okay. I'm just saying, like, I just want that to be it. That needs to be a part of the sport. And I don't know if anything that we talk about on the show will ever change that.
As long as people. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, like my entire professional college football life was predicated on recruiting rankings. And now recruiting rankings don't matter as much anymore. And I kind of feel like I'm out in the wilderness.
But hey, let's bring this show full circle because we do have to get off the air because JD's got to come on here soon.
Okay.
But it matters today because the offensive tackle essentially created in a lab to be the number one recruit in the country is deciding where he's going to go to school. 3:45 p.m. Eastern time. Keep it here. The On3 Recruits YouTube channel. I hope you're subscribed to that as well. They're going to have full coverage of Jackson Cantwell's commitment. JD's going to be talking about it on a hard count. This is still a big deal. Like you are the wrestling fan who got up and is like, it's still real to me. This is still real, period. If Jackson Cantwell says he's going to Georgia, or he throws up that U, or shocks the world and says he's going to Oregon, like it's a big deal. Big deal.
No, I mean it's still a big deal. I'm not trying to act like it's not. It's a huge deal. It's our entire business. I just mean the way it used to be done was different. So anyway, enjoy.
Far more McDonald's bags, but not now.
Yeah. And I love. I love a good.
Now you get a McDonald's franchise that you get to run.
I love a good Culver's bag.
That's exactly right. We'll take that Culver's bag anytime. Ari, it's been a pleasure. Tomorrow we argue about Ari's top 25. Of course, he's wrong.
I'm
Talk to you
wrong.
then.